My name is Aleksey Lukyanov-Cherny. I'm one of the founding partners of SITU. SITU is an unconventional architecture practice based in Brooklyn, New York, and we have three divisions: a research division, a design group, and a fabrication group. And would like to say that we use these different talents, these different groups, all in an effort to create a social and creative impact. Over the last 13 years, we've been lucky and fortunate to work with a number of innovative companies out there across different fields and sectors, as you can see in the snapshot here. And today I'm going to share three projects and three topics that we've been sort of uncovering over the last few years. So alternative spaces, sometimes they're called amenity spaces, but amenities maybe is a little bit too limiting in this case because the types of programming we're thinking go beyond your typical amenities. So this is an example of an alternative space, although not designed for its use, but it's actually a photograph, one of a number of these types of situations we've documented while embedded in a company's office for a few weeks, observing how people work, how and where they work. And so obviously this gentleman was taking a private call in what looks like a walk-in closet. Through surveys and conversations and interviews, we came across some interesting discoveries in terms of what kind of places people would want to have access to at their workplace to have some semblance of a work-life balance. Now, quick results on the top left corner. So most people do not wish to spend their time in the pod, number 5, and maybe not on tatami mats, but spaces like libraries and outdoor spaces, cafes and lounges, were all seeming to be popular in terms of where people would like to have some personal time at during work hours. And this is given that work hours are just increasing more and more with access to our computers, cell phones, et cetera, et cetera. Another interesting moment that we caught was kind of the ideal, what is the ideal space people imagine working at? And that's, the results are on the top left corner. So number 1, people mostly describe these, the responses were clean, serene, quiet, calm, well lit, naturally lit. And then when we asked how they feel like, or what they feel like about the spaces where they're working now, and most people responded to number 3 and 4, a sub-assembly line on one hand, or a really cluttered, claustrophobic space on the other. And so the first project I'll talk about is, recently has opened, is something we worked on for a big developer and owner, Tishman Speyer in New York City. It's a project called Zoe Clubhouse. Now, Rockefeller Center is one of the greatest urban developments, I think, of all times. Back in its day and still is now. I believe it's something like 19 buildings sitting across 22 acres of land. And the amount of amenities that this complex provides is amazing. From shoe shines and dry cleaners to restaurants and an amazing connection to transportation, music studios, concert halls, obviously a lot of public spaces, which is, again, as an urban project, really amazing, but we also have to understand that tens of thousands of people work in this development as well. And so the kind of the people that come to visit and sightsee and the people that have to work in these buildings above ground level are competing for a lot of the spaces and amenities, specifically food and transportations, but some of the other spaces too, spaces of retreat. And we also know that in the last 10 years, there's been a lot of development in New York City, building much larger plate buildings, modern buildings, technologically integrated, with a lot of amenity spaces already provided within those developments, and so creating a lot of competitions to landlords that are sitting on old stock real estate. And faced with this dilemma, the client here did a lot of surveying of their tenants, and there's over 300 different tenants in the Rockefeller Center complex, to understand what type of spaces people would really want to have access to in order to be happy where they are, not to leave and pick up their offices to a Midtown or World Trade Center area. And so overall, it's obviously there's a larger theme of these responses, but note that personal spaces, so spaces where people can have a personal phone call to arrange for a doctor, a babysitter, to meditate, to do something else that maybe allows them to take care of their life during work hours. It was the biggest response. Healthy food, followed by healthy food and wellness spaces. At the beginning of this project, kind of a concept phase, we looked at these types of programming, what they mean in terms of spaces, their qualities. We started creating these program mixes, understanding what type of programs can work together at different periods of the day. So in the morning, maybe there's a wellness program, and then throughout the day, those spaces can convert to support other type of learning environments or social environments, getaway spaces, etc. After studying probably half a dozen different locations across different rock buildings, we settled on one rock. This is the top 2 floors, to launch this pilot project. Now, as you can see by the furniture plan, there's a lot of soft, a lot of social type spaces, and these are some of the photographs right before the space opens. Not too many people using them, but we've been there recently, and it's been a bit of a different scene. But as you can see by the quality of the spaces, it's very much about providing light, providing softness, providing a very contrasting environment to your typical work desk or workspace. There's catered kitchen that supports kind of daily visitors, but also larger events. Tishman's partnering with multiple partners for health, for fitness, for beauty, that come in and provide services in these different rooms. There's massage rooms and nap rooms. There's definitely an outdoor space was a big attraction. And mentioning nap rooms, there's 4 nap pods, and they're constantly booked throughout the day, every single day. One of the most popular spaces within the project. Now this is a totally different project space, but what I'm trying to kind of point at is it's a different project, but the similar take on providing alternative spaces within the workplace. And it's a library space that then has this kind of hidden bookshelf door that leads to a small room without any technology, without a computer, with a couple of soft seatings, a couch. And one of the most kind of shocking, I guess, revelations we've had from doing a post-occupancy on that particular project is that having the access to these remote locations and very private locations in this instance allow people to actually do one of those kind of intimate moments, to have the most intimate moments in there, specifically crying. So people during work hours when they're stressed out, and no doubt accelerated by the speed of technology and how much it makes us work and our hours and intensity of things. People go in there multiple times. Different people go in and actually cry in this room. The second topic is in regards to agility. Now, offices are all working faster and faster, and teams change and they come in and out. But what happens is that the spaces, the actual workspaces, are not accommodating these types of work styles or work requirements. And so and this is, I'll admit, this is from the Daily Mail in UK, so it's a bit of a rag magazine, but a paper, but from a couple of years ago. But we've seen from the most quotes like people feel like cattle working in some of these, some of the most innovative technology companies that provide a lot of great amenities, great food, fitness classes, meditation programming, still have scooter rides, game rooms, and even people are still building slides for some reason. But what really, the reality within the office space, in the actual workspace, is that they're not optimized for what's actually happening, the type of work is being done. And so we get these quotes, forget the free food and drinks. The daily work hours, it feels like a grind. And so for this particular project I'll talk about now we had a really rare opportunity to spend a few weeks embedded in the client's office to observe their functions and their operations. The result of it was this almost 300-page book full of interviews and surveys and discussions and workshops results, as well as some suggestions about potential technological, infrastructural, and even programmatic approach to the future office. So we've done all of this before starting any concept design. And the result was a space that was very much about the infrastructure that can allow the activities, the working types, the groups that are working in there to change the space on their own as their work habits and work styles change with time and with influence of technology. And so what we see here is a floor plate that pretty much everything that's on the floor is mobile, whether it's on wheels or it's light enough to push around. And most of your infrastructure is up in the ceiling datum. So starting with the kind of theatrical pipe grid that suspends the lighting system, the acoustical system, as well as supplemental power drop-downs and data drop-downs. But it also allowed the team to, for example, one team in the space for a number, I believe 5 or 6 weeks, set up an area for VR demonstration. So they had to mount a number of a number of equipment and sensors into this space, and so the grid was allowing them to do this type of an experiment right in the middle of their workspace, not have to leave their workstations. You know, the other moves here is that placing soft furniture, again, right in the middle of team spaces. So people don't have to go far to find a lounge to catch a break. They can hop off their work stool and hop on the couch. The other thing you see here is this kind of first version of what we are calling a war wall, but really it's a mobile conference system that we're prototyping with this project. We've designed a second version of it for the next project for the same client, and we're starting to work on the third iteration of this. But really this allows you not to have to search for a conference room, but hop on a call utilizing specific audio and video equipment that can focus the sound within a specific range of this wall, and have your video calls as well as ideation, pinup sessions, marker sessions right next to your desk. So this is what we're calling kind of team assets, so things that different teams can utilize within their work area, not having to create additional rooms and spaces to support this type of function. We rethought the conference room. So not every conference room has a table. Those that do have tables, those tables are mobile. In this case, there's a few conference rooms with couches. The entire conferencing system is on wheels, so it could be moved out. So the change of the function of use, the function of the room can be changed very quickly within an hour or two. This is an example of a very large conference room that quickly, everyone from the start knew wasn't going to get a lot of use because there was just no natural light. It was too dark. It was too large. And so the idea of a flexible conferencing system that allows you to rearrange your large table that will maybe get used once in every 3 months by 20 people into a classroom scenario or a classroom and lounge scenario was very appealing to the client here, and very obviously provided a lot more functions out of the space. Another interesting space is really a circulation path that becomes this kind of informal pin-up and discussion area. So people can sit around tables, pin up on the mobile sliding partitions on the walls, utilize the screens there, but also the same tables, which have height adjustability, can rearrange for other types of activities. And in this case, this was a first Thanksgiving dinner after the project opened. And so there's always a variety of spaces, and this topic was brought up before. There are the kind of quiet getaway spaces and your more kind of energetic collaborative spaces, workstations. There's obviously other lounges that you can get away to find more retreat and quiet. We even designed these kind of mobile pods that can move around the floor plate to set up these smaller meeting areas that are more appropriate for the size of the meeting and the type of meeting it is. Instead of going into a conference room. And we were lucky in this instance too to come back 6 months after the project opened and do some post-occupancy survey to understand where we succeeded and when we failed, and which spaces worked and which spaces didn't. And there's people just rating on this slide. People are rating their most favorite spaces away from their desk. This is a very recent statistic that we found out. We checked in 6 months after the project opened. They're like, yeah, we've actually rearranged the main studio space. I think they said like 4 or 5 times. And we were just there a couple of weeks ago because we're working on their projects with the client. And when we checked in with their space administrator, and they track all of this. They track a lot of data. They said they actually transformed this space 18 times since the opening in 2017. And this goes back to the idea that teams work fast and need to change how they're relating to each other, with whom they're working, where they're working, et cetera. So this is really exciting and shocking, I have to say, for me to hear the other day. And the last topic is about attraction. And this is really about us realizing that there's a real need out there for great places, not just spaces, but places that bring together people and communities. Now we've seen kind of a handful of these kind of large communal / in this case retail spaces. There are visitor centers for various large tech companies out there. They're not the best example because they're still kind of orienting towards the consumer and to the public, but they're really not thinking about the employees. So they're kind of branding flagship projects. This project is really interesting because I mean, at the scale that Google is building, they have to interact with public spaces. So although this is a security nightmare, but there's actually their campuses are now being bisected by public circulation routes. But not too far from that project, we're working with a much smaller public space project, but for nonetheless an exciting company. This is NASA's JPL division, the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. And their campus was designed in the 50s and 60s. And the original design had the central plaza of this campus had this grand fountain that has been decommissioned for the last 10 years or so because of the drought, but because it also doesn't really perform any other function. And so we were asked to rethink this public plaza, this public space, and create something that supports work outdoors in the hot LA sun, provides a communal space, but also provides something that's iconic and that's something that represents the mission of JPL. And so instead of being this kind of barrier in the center, that kind of bean-shaped in the middle is the current fountain, our scheme was really to make that a place of congregation, of community. In the place of the fountain, there's this new pavilion about 5,000 square feet. It provides shade for the workers to come out, whether it's to have a private call. There's actually a small water feature just to create some audible noise, to create a little bit more audible privacy. It's a structure, material and structural approach that we feel like is innovative and interesting and ultimately iconic. The space also provides lighting for nighttime and access to fast Wi-Fi as well as outlets to plug in your technology. So this concludes my talk. Thank you very much.